Hey everyone, welcome back to another RuneScape video. In the last video we covered RuneScape 3, otherwise known as Modern RuneScape. In that video I talked about how that version of the game has a more modernized feel, having things like better graphics, a more orchestrated music track, microtransactions, and a bevy of other gameplay differences, a lot of which I personally enjoyed. In this video we will be covering the parallel to RuneScape 3, Old School RuneScape. This version of the game is based on the older engine of RuneScape, which originates circa 2007. With both versions of RuneScape being developed at the same time, it might be a bit confusing for those who are new to RuneScape which version they should play ultimately. I recommend watching my RuneScape 3 video first before watching this one. That way you get a full picture of that game and then you can come back to this one. Anyways, Old School RuneScape, it's essentially the complete opposite of modern RuneScape in many ways. It has the retro graphics that many players enjoy, synthesized nostalgic music, less microtransactions, and probably one of the more unique spins on content development I've seen in most MMORPGs. Updates are for the most part completely decided upon by the community. You see, Old School RuneScape in general was created because many of the players during 2013 felt that the game was evolving in a way they didn't like. Therefore, the community asked for Old School to be created, and boom, Old School was born. At first, Jagex wasn't too keen on putting development into Old School, but they underestimated just how big Old School would become. Upon release, thousands and thousands of players signed up, beginning over again on the new game. To many veterans, including myself, it felt like coming home again. Over the years, the game has seen a number of updates, and for the most part, it still has that nostalgic hardcore appeal. OSRS still rivals its modern counterpart to this day in terms of population, with no slowing down anytime soon. Both games are still considered one of the best and most popular free-to-play games out there. But in this video, let's answer the question, should you play Old School RuneScape? Well, guys and gals, let's get into it. Both versions of RuneScape can be described as a sandbox MMORPG in which the player creates a character, and from there the world is theirs to explore with little sense of direction. The world that RuneScape takes place in is Gylanor.
God, I still can't pronounce it! God damn it!
Character creation in Old School RuneScape is pretty minimal, having you name your avatar and then selecting the various choices that more or less won't matter once you have armor on, and to be honest, all of it looks pretty crappy anyways. Iron Man accounts exist in Old School as well, which is a game mode in which the player cannot trade anyone, forcing the player to have to earn everything themselves, otherwise known as a DIY account, or do-it-yourself. Group Iron Man is also coming to Old School RuneScape in 2020, which will finally introduce group play to the renowned gameplay mode, which personally I am incredibly excited for. Character customization aside, the true strength of Old School RuneScape is its gameplay. Like RuneScape 3, Old School RuneScape's gameplay hook is leveling your skills, doing quests, participating in minigames or side activities, and then combat. The skills in Old School RuneScape are attack, strength, defense, ranged, prayer, magic, runecraft, hit points, crafting, mining, smithing, fishing, cooking, firemaking, and woodcutting, with agility, herblore, thieving, fletching, slayer, farming, construction, and hunter being members only skills, totaling 23. More on that later for the members skills. The skills work nearly identical to their RuneScape 3 counterparts. Attack is your accuracy and what weapons you can equip. Strength determines your melee damage. Defense determines what armor you can equip and how much damage you can block. Ranged increases damage with ranged weapons and which ones you can equip. Prayer is your temporary buffs that you can switch between. Magic levels unlock spells you can use. Runecrafting allows you to craft runes for your magic ammo, etc. etc, etc. Skills in old school RuneScape is the lifeblood of your character, and typically most players are grinding to get the coveted 99 in each of their professions, which depending on what skill you are training, takes quite a long time, and is often celebrated by the community. Obviously, as stated, if you aren't grinding your skills and leveling up, odds are you are doing the various other activities that RuneScape has to offer. Quests in old school RuneScape, like I described in my RuneScape 3 video, are some of the best that the genre has to offer. Many of them provide really fun storylines that often span several quests long. Some of them are more comedic in nature. No matter how you look at them though, they are all engaging in some way. Most will have you solving puzzles, going through dangerous areas, and even fighting bosses that are unique to that quest. Ironically, some of the community hates doing some of the more longer quests, but they are always very rewarding. Quests like Desert Treasure are some of the most iconic in this sense because the reward from a quest like that is new spells that you can use with magic, and many other quests unlock very powerful items or bonuses that are essential to your character progression. Like my favorite quest of all time is probably Underground Pass. The atmosphere of that quest is just amazing to me. The adventure, the storyline, and for the most part, some of the gameplay, it's just timeless. I remember it being the first hard quest I ever played in my RuneScape career all of those years ago, so it's definitely something I'll never forget. And trust me, if you are new to the game, you will find that one quest you truly enjoy playing. Other activities like minigames are also fun things to do within RuneScape. Minigames are essentially the same as they are in RuneScape 3, with some unique ones. For instance, old school RuneScape has a small-scale battle royale mode called Last Man Standing, in which you fight other players until one person is left, staking money with the victor winning it all. Games like Castle Wars, which is RuneScape's Capture the Flag, is also here with tons of other minigames that players can take part in, so if you are looking for something to distract yourself, there shouldn't be anything out of question. Next, let's talk about combat, PvP, and endgame. Combat in old school RuneScape is vastly different to its modern counterpart. Modern RS showcases a tap target combat system in which you use abilities that you gain from your combat skills, while old school RuneScape is more like an interactive turn-based combat system. Attacking an enemy will have you begin attacking it. Instead of skills to interact with, old school RuneScape will have you doing things like switching weapons at the right time, turning off or turning on your prayer buffs, and taking advantage of player positioning. For some, old school's combat may look more primitive than modern RuneScape's, but it's just as in-depth. Many of old school RuneScape's endgame bosses will have you running to dodge rune mechanics, switching prayer buffs on the fly, changing combat equipment, timing specific combat actions to avoid death. It's a pretty intense experience, especially with some of the bosses having a really good chance of killing your character, making you lose all of your equipment except for a few select items. Oh yeah, I guess now would be a good time to talk about death in old school. RuneScape 3 changed some aspects of this, allowing you to recover items that you would lose upon death. Old school RuneScape, however, is hardcore in comparison, having it where if you die, you lose everything you have except for 3 to 4 of your most valuable items. This gives a real sense of danger with death, meaning you are a lot more inclined to be smart about your combat decisions. Full loot death also carries into PvP in old school RuneScape. Similar to how RuneScape 3 has PvP, old school RuneScape has a lot of the same features. The Wilderness, which is a large section of the map dedicated to world PvP, exists in OSRS as well, which is where you will find most of the PKing taking place. Many of the game's minigames like Bounty Hunter and the previously mentioned Last Man Standing is also PvP in nature. PvP in OSRS seems to be a bit more healthy than RuneScape 3 as well, with more players willing to compete in PvP and sometimes risking it all, especially in the full PvP worlds where you can attack or get attacked just about anywhere in the game. I would say though that people are still unwilling to risk all of their gear when PvPing, which is incredibly understandable considering some of the best equipment in the game is incredibly expensive or hard to get, and to lose it all within a matter of minutes is really hard to think about. But obviously PvP is completely optional, so it's not like you have to take part in it, and for the most part, if you do have to go into the Wilderness, you can bring the minimal amount of equipment to keep you alive. Lastly, let's talk about member membership and the one microtransaction in old school RuneScape. Bonds can be purchased for old school just like RuneScape 3, which are tradable items that allow you to get membership. These items can be sold on the auction house as well if you want to make money, but on the flip side, if you earn enough money, you can earn membership through gameplay. Like in RuneScape 3, I like this system a lot since it encourages people to potentially play more if they can't afford membership. That way they can just earn it. Membership allows you to access the full game. Free to play for sure has a lot of content to experience, but membership opens up 10 times the amount of content to explore. You get more skills to train, more quests, more minigames, more bosses, more items to collect. Overall, membership is the true way to play old school RuneScape. As of 2018, the game can also be played on mobile devices like Android and iOS. That means you can play the game at just about any time, so you can grind skills, or maybe do that pesky quest that you've been putting off for a while you're on a long drive or something. The music and graphics of old school is also very retro. Obviously, the graphics haven't aged too well, as you can see here, but that's part of its charm. The music is also something that benefits from its retro feel. While yes, it does have a MIDI feel to it with its beeps and boops, it still does a really solid job of giving an atmospheric tone to its soundtrack. RuneScape is probably my longest played MMORPG of all time. I occasionally play it off and on, and over the years, either creating a new account or coming back to an old one. RuneScape is just one of those great long-standing games that isn't going anywhere for a long time. And now that there's two versions of the game to be played, you can either play the new modern version or the old school version. Like I said, it's still one of the best and highest populated free-to-play games out there, and has been that way for about 20 years now. It just has something that I don't think can be matched by any other games out there. Anyways, let's get into my final thoughts. Old school RuneScape has a free-to-play mode that you can play that offers a great amount of content if you are looking to try it out. This way you can see if you like it, with the option to also earn membership through its bond system. The game also offers a mobile version of the game that cross-saves your account between the two, allowing you to play the game anywhere you go so you don't miss out on any extra experience you could be getting while you are out and about. The game has been around for years, meaning that there is a ton of content to check out and play, with more to come as the game is updated quite frequently with its huge success. The game has multiple modes to play, like Iron Man, the limited time Dead Man modes, the newly introduced League modes, and the coming group Iron Man mode. All of these modes give a large variety of replayability for those who are new to the game, as well as those veterans. The game is also, for the most part, community driven, meaning any content that is proposed to the game is largely voted by the community to be implemented. This means that any future content coming will be player driven rather than corporate driven, giving a much better player experience to those who don't want things like pay to win creeping in. The game has an incredibly large player base to dive into, whether you join a clan, talk to new people on forums, or meet a new friend while playing the game. OSRS has a very populated world to explore. The game is obviously retro in nature, having very old graphics and music to offer. Obviously that won't be for everyone though, but nostalgia seems to be a pretty hot topic nowadays. Old school RuneScape has a couple of different clients you can download and play the game with that has some very helpful mods. One that I use and it's often recommended is RuneLite, so it does have a bit of mod support, at least unofficially. Lastly, since the game is old, that means that just about any computer and phone can run old school RuneScape, so if you're looking for a game that won't be super taxing on your computer, old school is right up your alley. Now, on the flip side of some of the points I brought up for the reasons you may play, they could also apply to why you might not want to play. Things like its old school graphics and music may alternatively turn you off to old school RuneScape if you want more modernized graphics. Since the game is going for a more hardcore feel, the game is going to be very grindy in nature, meaning if you plan to try to get to endgame anytime soon, well, you are most likely going to be playing for quite a while before you get there. Leading in from the hardcore nature the game is going for, it also has a full loot death, meaning if you aren't careful and you die, you could lose a lot of your hard-earned items, which can be discouraging for new players and kind of decentralizes PvP in some cases. The game has a pretty steep learning curve when it comes to some content, especially the quests, where you are essentially going to need a guide pulled up while you play to get some of the activities completed. Since the game is community driven, it also means something that was proposed that you like may get rejected by the community, which can be a bit of a bummer if you were looking forward to it. This has happened to me a number of times, but overall I didn't let it deter me from playing. Lastly, the game can have a toxic player base at times, with its bots, rude players, and competitive nature. If you don't like that sort of community within a game, it's best you try to stick to playing with friends or finding a like-minded clan to play with before diving in. So I'm definitely not the first nor the last that will sing the praises of RuneScape on the internet. The game has garnered massive worldwide appeal, and this is just my video on the topic. If you want to check out some other content creators that have made some awesome old school RuneScape videos, check out Actman's video, Lazy Peons, and of course the wonderful The Dumb Goose. So everyone, thanks for watching. Do you currently play old school RuneScape? Have you wanted to play RuneScape? Don't be afraid to leave a comment down below. I respond to everyone in my videos, so let's start a discussion. If you like this video and want to support the channel, maybe I can convince you to go ahead and click that subscribe button, as well as liking the video down below. Doing so will help drive attention to the channel, so I super appreciate it if you do. If you want to follow me on my social media sites, I have links to my Twitter, as well as Discord down below in the description. Lastly, like I do in every video, I gotta give a shout out to my loyal supporters who watch all of my videos, give feedback, and overall have been there since the beginning. Anyways, let me stop rambling, guys. Once again, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.